If you saw the first part of this programme, you will remember my showing this. It's a sound recorder used by the teams in the competition. One of the features of the film we've just seen is the way in which sound effects add to the overall reality. In our last film, made by the Cambridge expedition about the Camper Indians of Peru, the use of sound is even more evocative. Dilwyn Jenkins, you are a student of anthropology and the lead of the expedition, and you filmed the story, and Peter Wade, you recorded the sound. Now, what was the objective of your expedition in Peru?
Well, fundamentally it was to study the changing situation of some forest Indians. We didn't want to study the Indians in the mountains so much as the Amazon Indians, because on the eastern side of the Andes it leads right into the Amazon. And
was this high rainforest then, or?
It was quite high. It was about 3,000 metres at the most, but it was where we were, only about 2,000 foot.
Yeah. And was it difficult to find the Indians?
It wasn't very difficult to find, but we were told by a number of people that it wasn't worth going to find them because they wouldn't want us to be there, and they'd be unfriendly to us, and B, that they were too poor to have us staying with them. But neither of which was true.
Really? Well, experts, they're like that, aren't they? Yeah. Right, well, Dilwyn's team had to travel first from their arrival point at Lima, up over the Andes by train and by road, before walking into jungle paths to find the Camper Indian village, where the intrusion of Western culture is still a threat and not yet a reality.
This is a village of Camper Indians, 4 days' trek from the end of the Lima road. Camper is the Spanish name for them. They call themselves the Ashaninka, which means our people. Since the Spanish conquest of Peru, the Camper tribe has had indirect contact with Western civilization. Some groups have been almost completely assimilated, the land exploited and their traditional customs forgotten. These Indians are just on the fringe of industrial technology. They choose to use items like steel axes and metal cauldrons because they are more efficient and much more durable than the stone or clay objects they could produce themselves. For these people, the main source of these goods is the mission. It's their only direct contact with Western civilization, 1.5 hours walk away. Although there's a church, the main function of the mission, both for the Camper Indians and the missionaries, is economic rather than religious. It acts as a buffer for the Indians against the impacts of exploitation by introducing them to the ways of the white man and by teaching them Spanish, carpentry and farming. Aircraft are the lifeline of the mission. The Indians are quite used to watching this sophisticated technology.
Despite this, they are still dependent upon the natural resources of the forest and their traditional techniques of manufacture. The women use palm fronds from the forest to weave baskets and mats. These take only a few minutes to make, and after a couple of weeks when they are worn out, they simply throw them away and make new ones. The pace of production is very leisurely, but the methods they use require great skill to perfect. Children are not taught directly, but learn in their own time by watching and experimenting. The natural simplicity of their technology means that the demands made on the forest are not destructive. However, the simplicity is actually very deceptive. All they have at their disposal are their bare hands and a few basic tools. Every person combines these with his own skills and an ingenuity perfected by generations of jungle living. Arrow cane is collected from the jungle, given a barbed hardwood point, and then straightened in the fire. Bird feathers are trimmed to shape and then bound onto the shaft using cotton grown in the gardens and a natural glue-like resin. A few simple movements, scraping, pushing, cutting and twisting, and Bob's your uncle, you've got a beautifully balanced arrow. They get a variety of animals from hunting, small birds, monkeys, and occasionally wild pigs and tapirs. But they don't simply eat them. They use the feathers of game birds to make arrow flights, fire fans and headdresses which they wear for decoration. Proud of their arrows, men spend much time inspecting one another's hunting gear. One of the most arduous and time-consuming tasks that the women have to perform is that of spinning and weaving cotton. The men's kushmas, the long robes that they wear, are entirely hand-woven in the traditional patterns, and it takes about a month to make one. Hundreds of yards of thread are strung onto a loom about 30 feet long, and then the shuttle is pushed through the loom thousands of times before even a yard or two of the cloth is completed. The women spend more of their time working than the men, but somehow work doesn't form a separate category in their lives. It is simply the business of living.
The men spend a good deal of time sitting around talking and drinking, but during the dry season they spend 1 or 2 days a week at the river, fishing with poisons. First of all, the men dam the rivers, moving boulders into place against the rushing water. This is by no means treated as a heavy task. The men most definitely enjoy it. Each new dam is a challenge to their ingenuity. They cooperate to stop the river flow, then poison is dispersed in the pool they've created, and the whole village together joins in the fun of scrambling about, catching the stunned fish. There's a problem emerging for the people of this village, since due to their desire to remain close to the mission, they never intend moving the site of the village again. Traditionally, they would all move when someone died, which generally occurs every 2 or 3 years. This tradition has, until now, maintained an ecological balance, but if they continue to fish the river around the village, this balance may well be upset, causing the fish to disappear. They recognize this problem, but their desire for a secure contact with Western civilization overrides their ecological common sense. Preparing the poison is, again, a communal activity. It was one of our few opportunities to pitch in, giving them a useful hand. Although it's hard work, the kids are pretty adept at it too. The poison used is a pulp pounded from the leaves of a cultivated plant. This only dopes the fish, making them easier to catch. It's not harmful to man. Compared to the construction of the dam and the pounding of the poison, the actual catching of fish takes a relatively short time. They catch them by hand and bite them to break their necks. The fish, called carachamas, are small, armour-shelled dogfish. They are the main source of protein during the dry season when the rivers are low.
As with fishing, their choice to remain near the mission poses problems for cultivation. While traditionally they moved every few years, now the same soil will have to support them year after year. This leads quickly to a reduction in yield because of the impoverished soil. As a result, they are forced to clear more and more gardens. Soon, they will depend upon peanuts rather than fish and game for protein. Manioc is harvested every day by the women. It is roasted and boiled for food, and it is also the basic ingredient for making a type of beer. The woman of each household takes charge of making a batch of beer, but all the women in the village help her, and the beer is shared by everyone, man, woman, and child alike.
Their social life revolves around beer. They spend many hours sitting around, drinking, playing musical instruments, chatting, and enjoying themselves. This is particularly important when they are paid a visit by their kinsmen and nyompari, which means trade partners. There is a strong bond of kinship among the villagers and also between villages. After a few weeks, even we were addressed as kinsmen. It is at drinking parties that these bonds are particularly reaffirmed. A drinking party may last for 1 or 2 days, sometimes starting at daybreak and continuing until midnight. The women also drink and sit with their female kin separately from the men. Sometimes during a drinking party, the women suddenly start throwing water at the men, who are not, it seems, allowed to retaliate in any way. When we asked what was happening, they simply replied, "It is our custom." To us, it seemed that the women were perhaps publicly humiliating the men, showing symbolically that they were able to dominate them. While some people drink, others play pipes, recorders, or mouth bows. Drinking parties are times for relaxation and enjoyment. But there are fixed rituals attached to these festivals. The bowl is always passed around the group in one direction, each person drinking in his turn. Drinking parties are the occasion for ritual dancing. The women begin to dance and sing alone, and usually the men just watch. On some occasions, they too will join in and dance in a line while playing the panpipes. The dancing may continue from morning until nightfall. It's an emotional experience, traditionally meant as worship to the sun. It is obvious that much of their traditional way of life still remains. The campers themselves say that they want to maintain it, with the added benefits of industrial technology, but they don't have the power or the knowledge to avoid all that Western civilization entails. They've adopted the game of football and enjoy it immensely. They've also adopted some simple aspects of our technology that they find useful. Lucio, the man wearing the blue t-shirt, returned from the nearest town 2 years ago because he prefers the way of life led by his kinsman, the Ashaninka.
this way of life will not exist for the next generation. Ultimately, it's our society which is responsible for the pressures that will change this boy's life.
Dilwyn, I like that film very much because the way you seem to be very much living with the Indians. Were you in fact living with them?
Yeah, we were staying in the same village, in the village where all of that film is taken. In fact, one of the Indians vacated his hut for us to live in. It was a bit embarrassing in a way because he had to sleep outside the whole time. But
very nice. Oh, what about language? How were you conversing?
well, four of the men spoke Spanish in the village, and we knew some Spanish too, so we spoke in Spanish to those who spoke Spanish, and just sort of talked and grunted, talked with eyes and grunted to the others.
You seem to be very good grunters. Peter, did you feel at the end of your time there that you were really getting to know these people beneath their skin, what they were really thinking?
I think in order to know what they were really thinking, we would have had to stay there for years and learn the language completely and fluently. And in order to portray that on the film, we would have had to incorporate them much more into the filmmaking process. And, we asked them if there was any specific they wanted to put on the film. And Lucha, who's the head of the village, sort of discussed it with his kinsmen, but he said they didn't really understand what was happening, which is, understandable.
The film said that you were acted as kinsmen. Did you in fact join in on these lovely beer drinking?
Yeah, we all joined in. It was the best part of the whole occasion.
And did you go for days, was it?
Well, once we visited another village, just about 3 days after we arrived, in fact. We went to visit a village 4 hours walk away, and we spent a couple of days drinking there. So that was the only time it went on for days. Every other time it was just for 1 day, or 1 day a week it usually.
Gillie, in the back there, do you think it helped that your party contained a woman? Did that help the women there to relax a bit?
Yeah, definitely, because it's the men stay over in one house, and the women stay and make manioc, cut up manioc and make beer over in another house, and the men aren't really allowed in a way to go over and stay with the men. So for me it was really good because I could go and communicate with the women over on the other side of the village, whereas Dilwyn and Pete and Mike and Pete, who isn't here, couldn't. And so that was very good. I think that's very worthwhile.
Yes. Fine. Now, you would say that they are taking certain things, axes and pots and pans and so forth from the West, but aren't they going to want more and more? Isn't that your feeling?
I think
transistor radios.
I think it's quite likely, yes. I mean, they are going to want more and more, but the precise sort of nature of that development is by no means certain at the moment. I mean, it depends.
You all seem to be very envious, I felt, of that way of life. Would you all like to go back there and live for a very long time?
I definitely would, yes.
Well, I hope you do. Thank you very much indeed.